Recording has started. So we want to look at HTML form, but then before we go to form, let's go to your website together and we'll look at how the website looks like. So this is my company's website. Now, this website is divided into 3 parts, and most websites are like that. So I want to discuss each part. We have the header, which is this place to the top, the header from here to the top. Then we have this place where we have the main contents. Then we have the footer, this part. We have the footer. Most websites are like that. They usually contain header. This header, it's usually the same across the pages. For instance, if I go to another page, you see we still have the same header, but this place has changed. This place where we have the main content, it has changed to something else, but the header remains the same. Most websites are like that. You have header that remains the same across the pages. Then the footer also, most times they are usually the same. The footer usually remains the same across the pages also, although the way we built this is we didn't make the footer to remain the same, like we remove the footer in some of the pages. But most websites, the header and the footer, they are usually the same across the pages. But then the only thing you'll be changing will just be the main content, this place where we have the main content. So a page usually divided into 3 parts for most websites. A page usually divided into 3 parts. The header, then this place where we have the main content, then the footer. Let's go to this page. I think the how it works page also looks like that. This is the header. This is where we have the main content, and here is the footer. So the header and the footer, they are not about that page. They are not about, because they are constant across the pages. They are not about that particular page. They're like about the whole application, but not about this particular page. For instance, this particular page that we have is the how it works page. The header does not give us any information about how it works. Same way, the footer does not give us any information about how it works. It's only this place, this middle area, that gives us information about how it works. This is where we have the main contents of this page. Most websites are like that. Header, the middle center where we usually have the main content, and the footer. And also we are going to make our own application to be like that too. So you divide your website into 3 parts. Header. This header is different from this head. This head is for the whole page. You are dividing your page into head and body, but this header is inside the body to signify these parts. Then we have the main and the footer. So if we want to build this website now, this website, we will place this part. Everything here will be inside the header. Everything here to this point will be inside the main. Then everything in this blue area will be inside the footer. Remember I talked about this main in our last class. I said this main contains the main content of that particular page, and that's how it works. So the main part is the main content of this particular page. If you come to this page, this is the landing page. This place also will be inside the header. This everything here, this is the main content of this page. To this place will be inside the main. Then this blue area, this blue section, will be inside the footer. So we understand the header part, the header tag now, the main tag, and the footer tag. Do you have any questions before we proceed? So let's go to the main thing we are doing today. We want to look at HTML form. For a start, I will just we want to build this form together. Let's go to facebook.com. Okay. You can even build this also, sign up for it. We want to build this thing whereby users can fill their names, users can fill their information and all of this. We want to build this form. We want your users to be able to, you want to collect information from users. So let's do that together. I think this is something similar to what we want to do. Good. We want to do this. We want to do this. We want to be able to build this form and collect information from the users. So for a start, before we go fully into form, let's say I want to build a medullary form. So I'll just put this inside the, this is not even about the main content. This is not inside the main, I would say medullary.com. Then this is the main content of the page. Then the footer, I can just say, let's say 2022. Let's put inside the footer. These are our main focus of today's class, inside this main. So I want to build a form, but before going into form, let me first talk about input. An input is a self-closing tag. An input is a self-closing tag. Let's run it on the browser. This is the input. In fact, for now, I will remove these attributes. This is an input. It's a self-closing tag. Of course, this is the header, this is the footer, this is inside. Forget about this background, but this footer here is the same footer here. When you get to CSS, you'll be able to style it and make things beautiful the way you want it to be. So let's proceed. We have an input like this. Input allows you to collect information from the user. So meaning I can go to the page now and users can type information here. Now this input has different attributes. One of them is type. That is, what type of information do you want to get from your user? The default type is text, meaning that this like this is the same as this. If you don't put any type, the default is text. So whether you like this or you put type, text is the same. It is the same. So let's look at other types aside this text. We have the type number. This is used to collect numbers from users. For most browsers, you can't type anything aside numbers here. If I try to type text, it won't go. I mean something that is something other than numbers. But if I type a number, yes, it will work. But if I try to type anything other than a number, for most browsers, it won't work. So we've looked at type text. Let's look at the other types, other inputs that you can get from your users. You can have type dates. This allows you to get dates from users. So let's go to the browser and I'll close this for now. Close this. We are coming back to this. So this allows you to type dates. So users can pick dates. Any question? Please, are we following me? Okay, doesn't work on Mac. Okay, we can fix that after the class. Next, we have other types. Aside it, we even have type color that allows you to get color from users. So you can select colors. We have type email that allows you to get email address. For now, you won't really see the significance of this email for now. as time goes on in today's class, you will be able to understand this email more. But this email is used to get email address from users. We have, let me even separate them. Type text, input, type number, email, color, date. You can also get password from users. Input type password. So this is the one for password. As you can see, it's not displaying what I typed. It is not. So this is type password. Then let's look at other input type. Then we have, okay, we have type file. Input type file. This allows users to be able to choose a file on their device. So this is the input type file that allows users to be able to choose files on their device. So I can choose a file. So this allows users to choose file. Any question? Okay, let's move on. Next is, we have some other input types aside these ones, but these are very common that you'll be using often. Next is, I don't know if you notice a problem here. The problem is that how do you think your user will know that they should put first name here, they should put a number here, they should put maybe email address? How do they know what to put inside this? Aside these three, this color, then this and this, aside these three, I think this 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think this 4, it may be confusing to the user. For a start, you can do something like this. You can say, maybe type your name here, then here type your number, here type your email address, here choose a color, here type your maybe date of birth, here maybe choose password. Then finally, you can say choose your profile picture here. Profile picture. I think this is more explanatory now. So refresh. So now user know that, oh, this place is for my name, this place for my number, this place for my email, this place for color, date of birth. I think this is much better. Then you may, but then everything still look written together. It's not well organized. Let's make it a bit better. So I want to put a space between this and the next one, then another space between this and this, another space, and another like that. So you can use a tag called break. The BR tag is a self-closing tag. This tag will break it and tell you to go to the next line. This BR tag creates like a line. It tells you break to the next line. So this will be on a line, then others will be, let's run it so that you see how it looks like. As you can see, this is here, then the break is here. So you can now keep adding the break tag. Okay, so when we went on browser, we add this. Wow, still not well enough. I still want to add more spaces, so I can make the break tag to be 2. Break it twice. So add. Okay, look at the first one so that we see what you want to do. As you can see, I think this page is okay now, so I can make others to be 2 also. This break is a self-closing tag. This is not that I'm closing it. Like I could have written it like this. It's not that I'm closing, I'm only making it 2. It's a self-closing tag. So when you open it, you don't close it. It's a self, just like this input, which is a self-closing tag. Also, break is a self-closing tag. So I think this should be better now. Yeah. Any question to this point? Please give me a second. I'm coming. I want to quickly attend to something. I'm coming. So, having discussed this, but then this can cause a little problem. Let's look at the problem with what we have on the page. Imagine this, that I have 2 forms on my page. Yes. Imagine this is like a registration form. Then I also on the same page, for instance, this is not common anyway, but then imagine that on this page I also want users to be able to log in with their email address and password, meaning that again I'll be getting this information, email and password. Let me copy this again from the user on this same page. So this the information here, everything here, they are together, and these 2, they are together. I can call this registration form and I call this registration section. Let me just call this section, and I'll call this the login section. So if you get to the page, this is like this. This is the registration section, and this is the login section. But then it doesn't look cool enough. You want to structure it. Remember, that's one of the essence of HTML, to structure your page. You want to tell HTML that everything here, they are together. Why things here are together? Like this is login section and this is registration section. So that brings us to form. A form is like a form groups related inputs. These are related inputs, but they are meant to work together. For instance, let's go to this page, methodology.com. The sign up page. This everything here, they are meant to work together. And also on the sign in page, everything here also are meant to work together. So let's do that together. I will create a form tag. Then I will now cut everything here inside this form. A form is not a self-closing tag. That is, you have to close it. It's not a self-closing tag. It is not. It is not. Common place. Common place. So, please, there will be no disturbance again tonight. Please, I'm sorry. So we have this form. Everything here, they are inside this form, meaning that I'm grouping them together. Same thing also, I can group these parts together. All I need to do is to put them inside the form, then cut all of this and put them together like this too. So forms are used to group related inputs. These are related inputs. Just think of this as like normal form. I mean hard copy form. When you give someone a form, you will be get a lot of information from the user. Maybe type your input your first name, last name, email address, write everything. You are requesting the person to write all those things inside that form. Just it like your physical form, hard copy form, such that when you give someone a form, you are processing, like you want to process those things together. Do you understand what a form does? They are used to group related inputs together. So I can also proceed by adding feed sets to it. Feed sets. Feed set okay, let's first see how this form looks like on the browser, so that before adding feed sets to it. So this is the form. Let's add feed sets to it to make it even. Well, I think I hardly use this feed set myself. Cut all of this and bring them inside the feed sets. Feed sets are used to group related feeds also, but you will see one thing you can do with feed set now. Wait a bit. Okay. Now here is the feed sets. Let's refresh this page and see the difference. Can you now see a line around it? We now have a line around it. If I had a feed set to this also. Feed sets. Then I can cut this and bring it inside this feed sets. That's not all. Feed set now allows us to do something, to use something we call legend. Legend is like the title of the feed set. So the title of this is registration form. I can now come here and say legend. Then I can now say registration form. Feed set allows you to now add a legend. So you can give it a title, registration form. So look at it. This is the legend. I can also add legend to this one. Legend. Then cut, paste. So this is login section or login form. Let me call it login form. So this is what feed set and legend add to it. Well, maybe if you don't want the line, you can remove the feed set and all of that. Let's proceed. I think in our last class and our subsequent class, our previous classes, I explained to us that when you are building an application, you are not just only building it for yourself. You are also building it for those people that will be using screen readers to read your page. Although this form looks cool, there is a problem. Screen readers cannot read most of those things on this page. That gives us a problem. Screen reader cannot read a lot of these things on the page. So that brings us to another tag. So you can say label. That brings us to label. What you want to do is this. No, I know that I need to type my name here because I can see it. But what about someone that's unable to see it? You know, I told us that screen readers read out the content of this page. They may not be able to know the right form to type name. 1, 2. You want a situation whereby when they click on this name, it will automatically bring them to this place. When they click on this, once screen reader gets here and it reads out number, it will automatically bring them to this place so that they can type number. Then once screen reader reads out this email, it will automatically bring them to this place. Like I said, the essence of what you're about to do now is for the sake of those using screen readers to read your page, to be able to know the right information to put inside these inputs. So let's do that together. I'll come here and say label. So label for, I'll say name. Let me just say name. Then name. I'll remove this now. So let's discuss what the meaning of this. This name is what those that can see your website will see. It looks like before, exactly like before. This name, whatever text you put here, if I put my name, that is what those that can see your website will see. But you see this here label for name is for those using screen readers. So what happens is you want a situation whereby when they get to this place, you want to automatically bring them to this input. So what I will do is I will come to this input because we want to attach this, we want to link this label with this input. I'll give it an ID called name. Whatever you put here must also be the ID you will use here. What you're just saying is you are linking this label with this input. This for an ID will link them together. Once you see that there is name here and there is name here, instantly it knows that they are together. Let's see what happens on the browser now. Now I will click on this my name, and as you can see, it has automatically shifted the focus to this input. How is that possible? It's because of the label, this label. So what happens is when screen reader gets here and it sees out this, it will automatically bring them to this input and tell people using screen readers to type the name. So the text here will be read out to them. Whatever text here, it will be read out to them. Then they can now fill these inputs. Let's do the same thing for others. Please, do we understand? Please, do we get the explanation?
Following you patiently, sir.
You said? Okay.
We are following you patiently, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Next is, let's do the same thing for this, for other inputs also. Label for number. I can call this phone number or anything. It's not a good practice for you to make your ID shouldn't have spaces. It's not a good practice. So I can call this phone. Then I'll come here, remove this now. I will say ID phone number. Then let's do the rest. I'll just copy, paste, input startups. The idea of label is that whatever you put here must also be the ID here. Please don't forget that part. Okay? I can remove this now. Then come to color. Why the type be color? Then maybe I can say, is it close color now? Anything. ID here. Okay. Then paste. I'll call this I can set it to vets DOB so that this becomes DOB also. Then I'll say it's DOB also. So input type. And lastly, the password. I think we see our file. Yes, we see our file. Profile picture. Input type file. So let's see profile picture. So we have this. Now if I click on any of the one now, any of this, it should move straight to the input. Good. We've looked at this. Next, we want to submit this form. At least maybe after filling this form, we want to be able to submit it. Let me fill the form now. So I'm done filling it, but there's no way to submit this form. That leads us to another input type. Input type submit. Input type submit. This creates something similar to a button that can be used to submit the form. Let's refresh. This is it. Submit. Type submit. So I can now fill this and then submit it. So the form has been submitted. But then I said the form has been submitted. The question is to where? To where? In the real sense of it, the form has, should I say, be emptied. I can't really say it has been submitted. It has been emptied. It's when you want to submit a form, or after inputting the form and all of that, when it's time to submit it, you go to this place and give it something called action. Action is that particular place where you want to submit this form to. Action is the portion, like the page that this form should be submitted to. That is, whenever I click on this submit button, where should the information inside this form, where should they go? So that's where you put, yeah, I can say go to maybe submit.php or maybe process.php. I think it's a common practice to use something called process.php. So when I click on this submit button, then submit everything here to a file called process.php. Of course, there's no file in our page called process.php. That's beyond the scope of this class. But then understand that when you click on this, the form will be submitted to whatever name you put inside the action as the value of the action. So let's try to submit it now. I will refresh this page and input now. Then type some information at gmail.com. Choose a color. I think we are fine. Submit. So it is attempting to submit this file to this form to process.php, and it's telling us that your file couldn't be accessed. That is, process.php cannot be accessed. That's because there is no file called process.php. Let's go back and quickly do something. Now let's add another attribute to our inputs. The attribute is called name. Let's see how important the name attribute is. Remember, at the beginning of our training, I told us that our application is divided into front end and back end. And this process.php is the back end, is the server side, the back end part of our application. Why this form that we can see? Remember, I said the part that you can see and interact with is the front end, while the part that does the processing is the back end. Whatever happens inside this process.php is part of the back end. Now there's a problem. I know that name should be typed inside this input. That's because I can see it. But how will the back end know that the information I put here, this Kenny, stands for name? How will it know that whatever you put here stands for phone number? How will it know that whatever you have here, of course you are submitting it to it, but there's no way for it to know that the information here, that is, this Kenny is for name, this number is for phone number, this text is for email, and like that. There's no way for the backend to No. So in order to make that possible, you introduce a name attribute to each of the inputs. So this name is mainly meant for the back end. The back end we now know, once I can put name here. So whatever is inside this input will be allocated to name. The back end will now see that, oh, this is name. Let's add it to this also, name attributes. So I can call this phone number, or phone number like this. So the backend now knows that whatever is inside this input, whatever the user types here, should represent phone number, or I can just use phone to make it shorter, or anything. So come here, do the same thing here. Oh, sorry, name. Let it be email. Then name. Let it be color. Name. Let it be DOB. Name. Let it be password. Name. Let it be profile pics. I can just use profile. So whatever you type here now will be the backend will treat it as name. Whatever the user types here, the backend will treat it as phone. Whatever the user types here, the backend will treat it as email. Unlike that, and the same for the rest. So let's try to submit the form again and see the difference now. Let me refresh. Fill your form. Then email this. Date of birth. Password. Then choose profile picture. If I submit now look at the top. Something has changed. Now it's saying that name. Look at it after this question mark. It's saying name equals to Kenny. Phone is this. Email is this. This percentage 40 stands for arts. This is color. It's using the color code. This is DOB. This is the date I chose. And this is the password. This is the profile picture. Any question? Okay, let's move on. I hope you're enjoying the class. I hope you are getting it. Can we hear me?
We can hear you, sir. We can hear you, sir.
So we now know what this name and all of this stands for. But then there is a little problem. The new problem is that our password, when we were typing it, we thought nobody saw us. Because nobody, the other time, the input type password only showed ... Imagine someone is right behind me. The person might be able to see, like when I start submitting it, the person might be able to read this password, which is not safe. So let's adjust that. What we want to do is, even when you submit this form and it's try submitting it to that part, this information will not be displayed at the top like this. It's not good for a lot of reasons. At least for security reasons, it is not good. So that's the next thing I want to fix now. You come here and add method. There are different submit methods, but the two most popular ones are post and get. And those are the only two we consider at this stage. Post and get. The default method is get, meaning that even if you don't put any method, it assumes that your method is get. The default method is get. Let's see what get does. Get just submits the information to that URL, displaying it at the top here. But post, on the other hand, we submit information, all this information, it will submit it, but without displaying it at the top of the page. without displaying it at the top of the page. Let me submit this form now, and you see the difference this time around. Now, my form has been submitted, but this time around, it's not being displayed at the top of the page. So now here is a warning. Never submit password or PIN using GET. Whenever you want to submit password or PIN, use POST. Sensitive information like card details and the likes, card details, ATM card and all of that. Never use GET. Only use POST to submit sensitive information. Okay. Next is, let's look at some other attributes of inputs. Maybe I want to ensure that users need to fill their email and password, like they are not optional. That is, if I come to this input and I try submitting it without filling my email and password, I don't want it to be possible. I don't want you just to be able to submit this form without filling it. At the moment, I can even submit it without filling any of them. So I want to make that impossible. So come here. Let's go to those ones you want to make compulsory. Add a new attribute. Say required. By putting required, it is now compulsory that you fill this part. Then which one do you want to make required to your password? Add required to. So if the user does not fill these two, the form will not, you won't be able to submit this form. Let's try to submit the form without filling them. Refresh. Now if I try to submit this form, as you can see, it's telling me to fill this. Let me fill this one and try to submit it again. It's telling me to fill this. So but I can fill these two. Once I fill these two, now I can submit the form. So that's the essence of the required attributes. Now, the other time I told us that this type email and type text, they look alike, but in this case you will now see the difference now. If I try to submit this form without putting a valid email address, it won't be successful. It's telling me that what is there does not look like an email address. It's expecting this at something. So that is the essence of input type email. Now this looks like a valid email address, and that's why it's telling me. Please note, this does not mean that this email address exists. No. It's not the essence of the front, or it's not the work of the front end to check or to verify if an email address exists or not. What this required just does is that it just checks if it looks like an email address, if the format in the format of what is written here, if it looks like the format of email address, meaning that I can put an invalid address here. I mean an email address that does not exist. I can just put anything. But once you just ask dots at maybe something.com or at Gmail, I think it can even take .co, it will work, because some websites uses .co, so this will still be considered as, they are required to still pass this. As you can see, it has passed. That doesn't mean that this email address exists. It only means that HTML sees it like it has the format of email address. So that is about the required attributes. Let's look at some other things together under the form. We want to look at some other inputs. Input type radio. Input type radio allows users to choose one out of multiple options. Users will only be able to choose just one out of the available options. Whenever you want users to be able to choose just one, you use input type radio. For instance, imagine I want to choose gender, whether male or female. Then, of course, you don't expect, like, the user will only be able to choose either the male or the female. So I can say uh, bring our label in, label for male, then input type radio, give it an ID. The ID must be the same as this. Then the same for female, input type radio, give it female. This will also be female, and this will be female. Now, look at this. At the moment, the user will first be able to choose these two, but that's not what we want. At the moment, the user can choose the two together, but you don't want that to be possible. So I want to tell HTML that these two are meant, they are together. That is, the user should only be able to choose one out of the two, not the two together. All I need to do is I will come to this place and give the two of them the same name. I can call it gender. Once you give the two of them the same name attributes, the user will not be able to choose the two of them together. The user can only choose one out of the two. So now, if the user selects another one, as you can see, it's on checking the previous one. So maybe let me take it to the next line. I'll come here and say PR. So it's going to add two quick lines. Okay. So user can choose one out of the two. It can be more. It can even be more than two, but just ensure that all of them have the same name attributes. Once they have the same name attribute, the user will only be able to choose one. Next, you may want the user to be able to choose maybe many things among the options. For instance, maybe you want to say choose your programming language. Choose the programming language you want. Alright. So let me say break, so that it's going to go to the next line. Then I'll say label for, I can say programming, let's put different programming language. Let's say JavaScript. Then this can be JavaScript. Then my input type. Now this will not be radio. Instead, this will be checkbox. Input type checkbox allows users to be able to choose a lot among that category. Like I can choose more than one. Radio only allows you to choose one. Checkbox allows you to choose many. So I'm coming back to this name attributes. For now, I will just give it an ID and it will also be JavaScript. Let's add others. So I will say solidity. Solidity. Then solidity. Let's look at another programming language. Then we can stop at 3. Maybe PHP. Okay. So these are the programming languages. Now we want to group them together also. Although in this group you can select more than one, but want to group them together. So to group them together, you give all of them the same name also. Name, I can call this programming now. But because it is checkbox, it will allow user to be able to choose many. So Let's run it on the browser and see how that looks like. So I can choose JavaScript and Solidity. I can check JavaScript if I want. I can check Solidity if I want, and I can choose the theory also. That is input type checkbox. Input type checkbox allows user to be able to choose more than one in that category. Any question? Just want us to do justice to form today before we leave. Okay. We can also add some other attributes to form. I think we've looked at the most important ones. We can add the autofocus. Autofocus means that whenever you get to the page, it will automatically take the user to that path. Autofocus. Immediately you get to the page, it is focusing on this. Let me put the autofocus somewhere else so that you see it. Let me put it in this place. Autofocus. As you can see, we are automatically inside the phone. Once you get to the page, once the user gets to that page, it will automatically bring the user to that particular input. Then, lastly, let's look at one more thing. Last, this one, you may not put inside a form, you may or you may not, but it's similar to a checkbox. We call it select. Select works in a similar way to checkbox. Select allows user, but most times, I don't think, well, it's not usually used inside, in a form. It allows us to be able to choose one out of multiple options. Let's say, in this case, I'll put it in a form. Select, then you will now put the options. The first option, first. You can put this, and it can be anything. Another option, second. Another option, third. So let's see how this looks like. So this is select. So let's change these things. Let's say rice, beans, let's say garlic. Now, let's look at this. I can choose anyone. Now, if I want to choose more than one, I can come here and say multiple. By writing multiple here, it allows the user to be able to choose more than one. So in this case, I can choose more than one. All I need to do is to press shift. I can choose more than one. So that is the select. Like I said, let me take it out, but then you know how select works now. Select, it will have options, then each of them will now have different values, different things. Yeah. What else have I now talked about? Okay. Sometimes you want to use something called placeholder. Placeholder usually uses as a substitute for this text here. Usually uses as a substitute for the text here. I can say name. Look at it. Whatever I put here will be a placeholder. Let's go to the browser and see how it looks like. You can see that there is whatever text I put here. iName. Let me just put iName so that you understand. You can see the iName here. But this is not like a real text. Immediately I start typing inside this place, it will disappear. It is just a placeholder holding that place. Since it is empty, it is still there for the main time. Immediately you will start typing something there, the placeholder will disappear. So another thing is to use something we call value. You can also use value. You don't use placeholder and value together. You only use one of them. Value, placeholder, immediately you start typing, it will disappear. Value does not work like that. Value in this case, it will occupy that place. Like you have to first clear the value to type something else. Let's say Aye Abidakun. This is the value now. The thing I get to the browser, this type is if I need to, if I want to, I can type other things, but if I want to, I can, I mean, I have to first clear everything before typing something else. Let's refresh again. This is the value. I can first clear it. I'm sure to first clear it before typing other things. So unlike placeholder that disappears automatically, if you want to remove that value, you need to delete it. You need to delete it and type yours. So that's value. I think I've done enough justice to HTML form. So let's recap. Number one, I told us about the sections of a page. I said the page is divided into 3 sections, and most pages are like that. We have the header, which is the top like this. The headers are usually designed, the header of a page usually designed across the website, across that website. You usually have the same header. So then we have the main, which contains the main content of that particular page, of this current page. Then we have the footer, which the footer usually the same also across different websites. I think these are advertisements on this website. So the footer usually the same also across the pages of that website. Now after then, I proceeded to talk about HTML form, and I said that's what we are going to be looking at today. Then before starting from, we talked about an input. An input allows you to get information from users. Then we have different types of inputs. It can be text. Text takes everything. Then we have the number. The number only takes number for most browsers. We have email address. Email address allows you to type email address. Then we have the color, we have the date, we have the password, we have the type file, which allows you to choose files on your device. We have the type radio. The type radio allows you to choose one out of many. The type checkbox allows you to choose multiple out of many. Then we have the select. The select can work like a radio or like a checkbox. If you don't put multiple, the select will work like a radio, and if you put multiple, the select will work like checkbox. Then input type submit. This type submit helps you to submit the form. Then the question is, if it is submitting the form, to where? So that brings us to the action. This is where this form is submitted to. Then the name attribute of your input is what the server, the backend, we used to know how to process this input. That's what we make the server to know the information inside these inputs. So method, and I said don't use get to submit sensitive data. Then we talked about placeholder. Placeholder, it's only holding that place for the meantime. Immediately you start typing, the placeholder will disappear. Then we have the value attribute. The value attribute will actually stay there. So if you want to erase it, you need to clear it yourself. Then we talked about this label. I said this is used for by screen readers. It makes it easy for screen readers to understand your page. The legend is like the title of that form. Next is we talked about, as we talked about. I think these are those things we talked about. Then, if you're using label, your for and your ID should be the same. Whatever text you put here and here should be the same, so that the screen reader can know that this, whatever you have there, is meant for this input. Any question before we call it a day? No. Any question? Assignment. Build this form. You don't need to put this sign up with Google. I think in our next class we will be able to do this button. Just build this form. Yes, it may not be as beautiful as this, like all of this. We use CSS for all of these things. I mean and some logic also are here. So, but then just get a form, get first name, get last name, get email, get password, confirm password. You don't need to add any logic to confirm password, meaning that whatever is here may not be the same as what should be here. Like you are just to get to that stage whereby you'll be able to check if what is here is the same as what is here. Also, put this here. I have read and agreed to put all of this there. Then just don't need to add any color. You are here to deal with color. You do all of that using CSS. Just help me to build this form. Help me to add this also. This is used to submit this form. Help me to build this form. I've also, for assignments, the previous assignment, I've dropped comment, I've replied to the mails you sent. So I think for some of us, I asked us to submit, to make some adjustments and submit the assignment. Please, if you are part of that, please kindly do that. For the next class. Okay. Thank you very much for coming to class. Have a lovely night's rest.